Hey guys, so for today's video, I'm really excited because I'm going to be talking to you guys about my best and worst drugstore palettes in my collection. So pretty much what I did, went in my collection, took all of the drugstore palettes that I own and split them into two categories, best and worst. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys pretty much what's in my drugstore palette collection, but telling you which I think is worth your money, which I don't think is worth your money. Even though all of these palettes I have in front of me are in the best category, I'm gonna tell you guys which of them are actually like my #1 faves and I love them so much, and then which of them I think are good, but just not amazing. So the first palettes I have here, I really love these. Like I really do highly recommend them. They're amazing palettes. These are the CoverGirl True Naked palettes. Let me give you guys a little close up here. I love the quality of these. 95% of the eyeshadows in here are all very good quality, like pigmented, buttery, creamy, really nice shadows. There's only like maybe, I think it's only this palette actually, the nudes one, where one of them, this shade right here, was just a tad bit disappointing, but that's it, like just one shade. So next I want to mention some e.l.f. palettes. These palettes are so freaking good. I absolutely love them. Now I'm going to show you, out of the 4 that I own, I'm going to show you my 2 faves. So my #1 fave is this one right here, and this is the Mad for Matte palette. Oh my god, this is such a gem in the drugstore. It is as good as high-end eyeshadow palettes. They're so bomb. Let me swatch for you guys. So pigmented, okay? So creamy, and they really got these shades down pat. Like look at these beautiful warm tones and the beautiful grays, like hello. I love these. They're so pigmented, so creamy. They blend beautifully. So my second favorite out of the e.l.f. palettes is this one. This is their Prism Naked eyeshadow palette, and it comes with 6 kind of foiled shimmery shades. I will say these aren't like the most pigmented shimmery foiled shades ever, but if you wet your brush with them, you get a very similar to like high quality foiled shadows. Let me just swatch one for you guys. This one right here is beautiful, and this like pale yellow gold, so pretty. Like I said, with no water, they don't look extremely foiled, but if you add this with like wet on your brush, it looks pretty foiled. So next I have some Wet n Wild eyeshadow palettes. These palettes are bomb.com. These are their Color Icon eyeshadow collections, and I have mine in the shade Comfort Zone and Poster Child. These are so good. Let's first talk about Comfort Zone. I feel like everybody needs this palette. Like look at this beautiful duochrome right there. That's pigment, you know? Like that's amazing. And I think these are like $5 or $4. It's so beautiful. Let me actually swatch this shade for you guys so you can really see the effect of it. So gorgeous. And you know what I love about Wet n Wild? It's like they keep up with the trends, because what drugstore brand do you know has duochromes? Like what? And here is the beautiful rosy shade and like mossy green shade in the palette. So beautiful. I actually just used this mossy green recently in a tutorial, and it's absolutely beautiful. So then we have Poster Child, and I actually haven't played around with this one much, I will be honest. They are really good in my book so far though. These colors are so gorgeous, and for a drugstore brand to come out with this many colorful mattes and make them bomb quality, like that's amazing. Look at how beautiful these are, okay? The quality of them is unreal. Like, do you see that? So here they are swatched right there. And again, I love how Wet n Wild keeps up with the trends. I feel like this is like a mini alternative to the Urban Decay Electric palette. I actually might want to do a tutorial with this palette. Let me know if you guys would be interested in doing like a colorful makeup look with this. So next eyeshadow palette from the drugstore that I have is this NYX Dreamcatcher palette. I will say I haven't really used this palette much, but I've kind of like swatched it and played around with it. And the quality is really good, but like I said, I haven't played around with it too much because just the colors in this palette I'm not too fond of, but I will say the quality is really good. Like this shade right here is beautiful. So last for the eyeshadow palettes, I have the Maybelline The Blushed Nudes. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the Maybelline eyeshadow palettes, but this one in particular is actually pretty good. It's not the most amazing in the way where I will say the quality is a little bit inconsistent. Like some of the shades are super pigmented and creamy, and then some of the other ones are a little bit less pigmented. So I will say that the quality kind of lacks, but this shade right here, this one, and a couple of the mattes are really beautiful. So I actually do really like this. If you're looking for a good kind of mauvey rosy pinky tone palette from the drugstore, I do think this is a good option. But like I said, keep in mind some shades are not as good quality as some others. So now we are moving on to face palettes for the drugstore in the best category. One that I absolutely love. This is, first of all, can we talk about this packaging though? The chrome, yes. So this is the Total Face Palette by e.l.f. And I actually really like this. The only disappointing shade in this is this one right here, sorry, this one right here. This is supposed to be kind of like a highlight, but it doesn't really have much of a sheen to it. It's kind of dull, so I just kind of ignore that shade. But I love these shades right here. I love this as like a bronzing blush. Like if I'm in a rush and I don't want to use too much bronzer or I don't want to use a blush, I just use this because it gives me color, but it bronzes me a little bit. So it's kind of both for my skin tone. But if you're pale, this will work as such a good contour shade. And then I love these two. This is like a nice apricot nude, and this is like a peachy pinky shade. The quality of these are really good too. Like let me just swatch them quickly. So they're really good. I actually really love this face palette. I think it's a great option from the drugstore. So next I have two other e.l.f. face palettes that I do really love. They're actually both contour palettes, and the first one here is this cream one. I actually really like this. The creams are very blendable. They're not too dry. They're not too oily. Like they just have a nice natural skin like finish to them, and they blend really pretty. I also love the tones. Like I love this light pale banana shade, and the one that I like to use to contour mainly is this shade right here, and then I don't really use the top two too much. So the other contour palette is a powder contour palette, and I actually like this one more just because I'm not a huge fan of creams. I am a fan of them. Like I like cream contouring. It's just not something I do all the time. I prefer powder. So I really like this palette. I actually especially love these two highlighting shades because they're super light, but very buttery, very pigmented, very creamy. And I love it for a good drugstore under eye highlight. It really does set the under eye nicely, and I find that it doesn't make it look cakey either. Like it's a nice natural setting powder, and this contour shade is nice. The contour shades I do wish were a little less cool tone just for my skin tone, but if you are a little bit lighter than me, you will appreciate the cool toneness of these shades. But they're really nice quality. Like they're nice and pigmented, and they blend really nicely. The main problem that I have a lot of the times with contour powders is that they're always super patchy, but with these e.l.f. ones, they're definitely not patchy. They blend beautifully on the skin. So last for the best category, I have these Maybelline contour palettes. Now I will say the quality of these is really nice. They're pigmented and they blend really nicely. Like I said, I always have problem with contour powders blending very patchy, but these don't do that. They blend really nicely. The highlights I wish were a little bit more shimmery, but they give a nice soft angelic kind of glow, and the blushes are pigmented. Like these are very good quality. The only thing is I don't really use them just because the shades that they have don't really go for my skin tone. Like I find this one is too cool, and then this one is a little too red tone for the contour shade. So just for my skin tone in particular, I don't go for these, but the quality is great. So if you can find a shade that you like out of these palettes, I would definitely recommend them. So now moving on to the worst category, I have two eyeshadow palettes to share with you guys and two face palettes. So the first ones I want to mention are these two Maybelline eyeshadow palettes. Now my main problem with these is that the eyeshadows are kind of inconsistent. So the ones that are actually kind of good are just that. They're only like kind of good. They're not amazing. So I just don't think that it's worth it. Now when Maybelline first released the nudes palette, this was actually one of the first eyeshadow palettes for a drugstore brand to come out with other than NYX. Like Revlon didn't have an eyeshadow palette, L'Oreal didn't have eyeshadow palettes. So Maybelline first came out with it. So I feel like at first this palette was actually pretty decent, just because we never had anything to kind of compare it to, you know what I mean? But now that there's so many amazing drugstore eyeshadow palettes, to kind of compare it to, this definitely does fall into the worst category for me. So next I have a illuminating palette by e.l.f. Now I do really love the brand e.l.f., but this was just a total kind of miss for me. This is an illuminating palette, but I don't find these powders to be illuminating at all. I find that they look very powdery and kind of dull. Like, I just don't find that this looks illuminating at all. I find that it looks very dull. I just feel like for an illuminating palette, I would expect these to be more of like their baked highlighters that they have that everyone loves, and I love those, but I would just expect these to have more of that, you know, that illuminating sheen to it, which they don't. They're kind of dull. So last is a palette that I hate to hate, and this is the NYX Highlight and Contour Palette. So many people love this, and then so many people hate it. So every time I see someone loving this and using it and it looks so good on them, I'm like, oh my God, why doesn't it look good on me? I have given this so many tries, but my problem with this is the contour shades. They are so patchy and very, very, very cheap looking. Like, all of these products I shared with you guys in the best category are very affordable. Like, they are cheap, affordable products, but they have that high-end, high-quality look. And this just doesn't. Like, this is super patchy on the skin. Whenever I try to blend it out and get a nice seamless line, you just can't, because you have like patches. It sticks to certain areas of your skin and it doesn't blend properly. That's my main issue with that. I wish I loved this, because I think this is such a great concept. Like, to have a drugstore highlight and contour palette with this many versatile shades is such a great alternative to a higher end one, but it just didn't work for me. Like, the quality doesn't match up to awesome high-end quality, you know? It just doesn't hit it for me. So that is it for my drugstore best and worst palettes. I really hope you guys loved this video. So many of you guys wanted to see it, so I hope it helped you in some way, and I hope you enjoyed watching. Like, thumbs up for more of these videos, because I've never done like a best and worst category video before. So if you guys actually enjoy seeing this, then I can maybe do a similar video for other makeup products. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys. Mwah.